Shopal actually is a brand activation partner. Now, this is a very new term. You probably, many companies have heard about TPs, distributors. So when we take on a brand, we first of all, Shopal focus on health and beauty across. We only take on brands related to one of the two. So we do have brands in baby and mom, in beauty skincare with a lot more healthy elements to that. And we also have natural supplements. So when we work on with a brand, it's very different that we do not only work on TMAll flagship store, the Alibaba side, or the JD, the Amazon side. We actually first help the brand shape what is your China strategy from brand positioning, marketing, PR, KOL, communication, all the way to channel strategy, which one to go first, which one to go later, at what pricing strategy, at what product strategy. So our business model from outside, we are very similar to sole distributor. But in the core is very different. We are strategy, brand positioning, brand activation, go-to-market, and even the entire supply chain management, because we actually also are distributors of the brands we operate. Our target audience is life upgrading female in China, literally from age 22 to 45. Why it's so young in 22? First of all, you go to tier 2, 3, 4, 5 in China. By the age 22 in China, they're already a mother. This is the reality of the market. And also, even though they're getting married later and later, but the reality is they are online in the year 2017. The 90s generation already surpassed 80s and 70s generation as the main consumption driver. So they are up. That is the reality. And going after where the consumers are, where the upgrading is, particularly, I think it's always very good for a company to do sanity check as a new consumer. Who would be the one in China not buying Estee Lauder, but seeking new brands? It would not be the 80s generation or the 70s. It actually would be the 90s. Another element, I was really shocked. I went to, because we do also work with a professional spa, professional dermatological, surgical, agencies. And then because certain brands we operate, we have to understand where is the consumer extreme going. And you have the V shape where you use the protein line to pull your face up, right? Literally make your face literally like a V-shaped. And we would thought majority of that would be people in their 40s and 50s. Actually in China, more than half, almost close to 60% operations are done for people under the age of 28. This market, people have a view of preserving their prime as long as possible. And they have this, have to look like a V shape as young as possible. So one of the things I do recommend the foreign brand, do not think the consumer profile in Europe and the US apply here. You have to find a good partner to identify among these youngsters, who do you do not target? Who do you target? Because this market, even among the 20s group, if you target the right one, there are the good ones. You're already big enough. The question is, are you really understanding and willing to listen to who they are? I think that is an interesting question. Every brand we work with almost have to work with them to see this is reality. The horoscope sign of people buying you, the majority born in the month of August. Why? And they are majority in tier 3 city, but in the east, why? Right? So that's interesting. So all of these data, you have to work together with a partner to figure it out. But do not assume what consumer target TA group in overseas can work here. Today, we represent about 8 different foreign companies. And one of the unique aspects, Shopal does not work with very, very large companies or very large brands. We actually work with small to mid-sized brands to legitimize them, make them scale into leaders of the category. With Spanish brands, the first one we actually began to working with this year, we only have one today, and it's Natura Bissé, which is one of the very reputable skincare brands that every Shopalers love. You can see everybody at our office actually holding a bottle of Natura Bissé. It's a very interesting story because Shopal does not rely on large corporation brands, but we run data analytics on the entire China e-commerce market every day. So what does that mean? Every day we would have real data of how is market across different category going, how is it growing, at which price tier. And we are looking for a premium brand. First of all, China consumer groups they're looking for new brands. And they're looking for much more story-driven, niche, high-quality brands with a lot of story, not just the usual large brands everywhere. Now, with that data, when we mine every day of which brand is very small niche and with the right pricing, and who has that, that open space of that price in the market, still needs a very good player we actually actively pursue them. So we run the data analytics on this brand, and we realized that Natura Bissé probably is a very good placeholder for, or actually a winner, potentially for even high super premium luxury brands into skincare. And that's a new category Alibaba is introducing this year with all the JDs of called super luxury. And I think Natura Bissé is the right brand. So we actually was trying to reach Natura Bissé since last year, June. And through several rounds of conversation, we realized Natura Bissé has been a very welcome brand, reached by many people, and the company has been very carefully trying to select the right partner. But when we first approached, we said, what is your brand positioning? And how do you not only ramp up scale fast, but without heavy discounting? You have many people selling you in parallel imports. How do you control that before ruining your brand? And how do you really become a leader of this category? So that's, they realize we're a little bit different when it comes to that. The traditional terms of TP, they actually focus on managing TMAll flagship store. So TMAll flagship store is it's not an Amazon model of e-commerce. Actually, you have to own the inventory. It's a marketplace. You go represent yourself on TMAll as a separate store that's owned by the brand. Now, the TP partner, usually their business model focuses on commission. So over the years, they are very good partners in terms of working with Ali, helping as a liaison. But overall, I think it's a different model when you're also a distributor of the brand. You would be a lot more sensitive toward promotional activities through discounts. You would actually try to build a brand with a much more long-term point of view. You have to think through which is your product strategy, pricing strategy to use against the discounters in the markets, in the category you're fighting with. So I think the distributor TPs are, particularly Shopal has the TP business. If you think through all the brands we represent their TMAll flagship store also. But we are much more to that. We also maintain the ecosystem. What is your pricing TMAll flagship store? What is parallel importers? How do you control the C2C fleet to making sure they follow your price? When you talk with the Amazons of China, rather than discount pricing, what is the content conversation you have with them? And across all the e-commerce platform, how do you maintain your price? So we are much more of a brand champion protector, at the same time scaling, rather than just a TP partner focusing on flagship store. In the past, for skincare brands or in baby category, for example, you actually need CFDA, China Drug and Food Administration, to register the product. And without registration, you cannot enter China, what we call general trade, which is a total China general trade online, offline. However, with the cross-border business, you actually do not need CFDA registration. You can actually be fully, of course, it will be stringent testing whether are you truly registered past the requirements of your local country. But as long as you are, you can operate out of what we call free trade zone within China, which is considered foreign bounded warehouses in China. That's considered out of cross-border. So you can actually do that, begin the business. How is it benefiting? I think each brand would have its own cycle. If you're very new to China, you enter into general trade. It costs money and time to do. But through cross-border, you actually can begin testing your brand through free trade zone. And in this business model, you do not have to spend arm and leg to set up a country business in China, hire a China team, or you do not have to register with CFD and wait for 12 months. You can actually pretty much begin immediately with the right partner. That being said, because with the wrong partner, it's very easy in China to have, personally I've managed many brands over the years before Shopal. I see so many brands go through quick discount ramp up and die within 2 years. And you have all of your volume focused on one SKU, or are you really properly managed as a brand where you build a healthy portfolio and you really build through proper pricing, proper positioning. So these kind of things, free trade zone is fast and furious, but you should still enter with the right partner, with the right brand positioning inside, rather than just a quick discounting route. Overall, I think the government have always been talking about, stopping the cross-border business for skincare because they don't require any registration, there's risks. But all the indication we're receiving that by the year 2018 and 19, the government is actually further investing in free trade zone. So that's a very strong indication that the trend is going to happen. And we have, based on our government, we are one of the government-sponsored companies actually in Shanghai district, one of the very few appointed to be the leaders in new retailing. Our information received is very strong support from the government on legitimizing free trade zone. Now, that being said, in 2018, the government actually did quite a lot to clean up cross-border in the other way, which is called parallel import, which is directly imported products through gray area into China, not through the well-managed free trade zone business model, but parallel imports out of different distributors or general trade partners. So that, I think the brand should be aware. If you work with a legitimate distributor that actually have very strong supply chain capability in cross-border business with all the e-commerce and online warehouses in Hong Kong, in China, they have 6 or 7 different bounded zones. Where are their supply chain? Are they really legitimate? Rather than just going inside with a partner, but they actually used to just do trade in the past. We're not Alibaba focused, nor are we a JD focused or Amazon focused, because we are a brand activation partner. The first thing for us is to really identify which is the most urgent platform is right for this brand to enter. For example, some of the brands might have zero awareness. For you to really immediately fight for resources on TMAll flagship store or on Amazon, you will be really wasting your battle. But what is the best channel to go? The C2C side, the individual content seller side, the WeChat seller side, the KOL blogger side. So you can leverage their brand awareness building at the same time begin to build a base of your brand. Because all the big platforms, they are actually TMAll, the JDs, the Kaolas, they will look the size of your C2C market. So Shopal actually own about 300 C2C fleets in each category, in baby and mom, high premium baby and mom, and premium skincare, to understand who are the best sellers at the right pricing using content rather than using discount. So we manage them. For the first brand entering, we clean up C2C and develop the right C2C partner. So you have a coalition of good seller building awareness for you and building volume for you. And then once the volume reached to a certain size, certain brands 10 million, certain brands 20 million RMB, we will bring them into TMAll flagship store. We are actually 5-star partner for both TMAll and also JD and also Kaola and even for WeChat coalition. So this is very unique for Shopal, that we are cross-channel but much more brand activation and live stage management partner for different channels. I always give the first indication, be very sure and steady, build your own market. Because who you are in your own market have a very strong influence of Chinese consumers' consideration of your brand legitimately cross-border. So steadily build your own brand in your home base, but meanwhile, really consider how do you want to enter first. If you are a brand with zero awareness, think through a partner that can really help you build content, build strategy around C2C coalition, so you are actually growing brand not only via discount only, just coming to the platform discount. You're actually growing brand with brand awareness and buzz generation, what we call seeding in people's heart. And then that's actually can grow very fast. If your brand already have parallel import problem, which means many people selling you online, for example, we can easily scan, do you have 300 sellers and or 1,000 people selling you or 2,000 people selling you? Then your first stage is really even out, clean out the wrong players who are selling you at very low prices and also selling other brands using you. So that is another stage. But once that is cleaned out, to making sure your TMAll flagship store is steadily ranking up. Ali actually ranks every brand in every category across using the TMAll flagship store data. So how legitimate you are evaluated by your TMAll flagship store. So if you just have a very strong C2C parallel import, it does not mean you're properly building your brand at the right equal place in China. But on TMAll flagship store, there are a category called discounters. There are a category called climbers. Discounters are brands who grow really fast but via discounting. And TMAll will treat you, always push you to discount. The same for JD. But if you are climbers, which they know you are actually very strong in content, very strong in products, you also have a lot of resources in online, offline, you can integrate with them, then they will talk less about discounting with you. They will talk a lot more about your growth strategy, SKU portfolio, pricing strategy, and content. So you do want to making sure you're climbers of ranking in the climber category, not in the discounter category. And later on, once your TMAll flagship store, I think my personal experience, because I used to run so many brands offline in apparel industry and skincare, if your TMAll flagship store are legitimate as a climber and legitimate as a very strong player across the Kaolas and JD, which is the Amazons of China, so you can see your volume reach to 70 to 100 million, you can consider offline, which is general trade business. But then that should consider actually earlier on, because general trade registration take about a year. I have done both. I have brought a brand from 0 to 500 million RMB online only. I've also done brands from 0 to 1.2 billion RMB in a coalition group in China via apparel, via offline only. I think the question regards to this brand's ambition. If you want to be really a very large brand, 10 years from now or 5 years from now, 10 years being too long for this market, but 5 years from now, 3 years from now in China, you would like to say, my benchmark is La Mer, La Pierre, right? Then you would have to consider, say, online, you would reach to 200 million. Then you carefully consider your offline strategy also. But either way, China is shifting away from a 1,000 counter type of market. It's shifting away from also 1,000 outlets market. What is it shifting into? Your online will be a main driver for commercial, but your offline, you must become a branding element, no longer using offline as a volume generation. So the number of stores required would be fewer, but the experience required would be bigger. So you actually have to consider mapping of offline as a legitimate presence dominator, but not as a volume generator. Why? Today, when I was looking at data, you would have La Mer's purchasers, you have Natura Bissé's purchasers, you would have Caudaly's purchasers, not in the age group assumed in overseas, because you have China, you will have 22 years old being the main purchaser of 2,000 above average ticket value skincare. The 90s generation grew from shopping online, and this trend is unstoppable. So online will be a main driving force for business volume, but offline, you cannot surpass it. Offline must be a battlefield for brand awareness and brand presence, but not in the sense of many, many stores, but in the sense of the best shopping mall, in the best footholds, you must have a very strong brand right presence. Online and offline, the more I'm doing both, the more you will consider the same as branding. Today, as an offline business, you equally have to think through what's your marketing. So unlike before, marketing, you every 3 or 4 months or every 6 months, you work with the agency to come up with a creative, and you buy tons of media, you wait until see if the media worked, you generate a report. Here is very different. So now, every day you would have social daily pulse check with the KOL's community, which what does it mean? Whatever is relevant for the Chinese market, the brand must be in the right, correct way to be relevant. You will have the daily layer, community layer. You will have the online campaign layer, which means you will have the Alibabas, you will have the JDs, every 2 months have a major event. How do you participate in? Well, they will give you hundreds of traffic inroads. How do you know which one really works, which one doesn't? And what is the right venue to leverage your KOL in these events? Because in these events, they will require small celebrities, KOLs, what they call wanghongs, all of these people. But that is on a every 2 month level. Also, you have the Double 11s, which is once a year in June 18th, that's major events. But however, surpassing that, the brand must take a step back. You need at least spend 30% of your energy on something called beautiful, stock forever right content, which is surpassing the daily, monthly rhythm. They cannot ignore. Now, when I was very fortunate, when I was in VF Corporation, the company sent me as an Asia lead, they sent me to learn about digital. I said, I have to go to Silicon Valley. That was in 2010. China e-commerce and China digital is just rising. Then when I asked the leadership of Facebook, I said, why is it so easy for you to do digital? Why is it so hard for my brand to do digital? They said, what do you mean? You are a different company. I said, but how are we different? That's making it so different. And they gave something very easy. They said, if being relevant with the KOLs and being relevant with the KOL fan base on daily level, figuring out what do they really want and be brand right to be present at them is called flow, which some of them might not be relevant 1 year from now, right? Another element is beautiful branded content that's forever, right? You look about 20 years later, that's called stock. He said the digital companies and rising e-commerce companies, they spend 80% energy on flow, 20% on stock. How is your company spending energy? How is your team spending energy? And regardless, you can see my company at that time, VF Corporation, spends 90% effort on stock, less than 10% on flow, and we don't do it right. So, as a result, as a young brand, nowadays competing with large conglomerates entering into China, you cannot compete on stock. You know that, right? But you must win on the flow piece. So that is the KOL communities. That is the campaigns integrated with the platform. But that being said, find a good partner who can figure out how to do this commercially viable, at the same time brand right is critical. Because being small, you can go up and die next day. The large one, they're still everywhere, so they won't die overnight. I've seen many brands literally disappear in the course of 6 months, even they've reached 100 million RMB in China. A lot of people think KOLs are major celebrities, right? A lot of people think KOLs must be, doctors, for example, if you're a baby mom channel. In reality, Shopal manage KOL in 2 ways. First of all, if you only are able to generate readership, you cannot generate commercial. I do not work with you. Because readership in China means nothing. The attention span of consumers is too short. I think for somebody being here, you probably know 24 hours, they always, every day spend 13 hours online, and their attention span is very short, less than 15 seconds. So first of all, if a KOL can legitimately commercialize a content, that means their relationship with the reader is very intimate. Their relationship is not a media and a reader, but an influencer and a fan base. What I say, you actually follow. So that's a strong indication, particularly because smaller brands, you cannot waste your money on purely readership-based KOL. The second layer we actually measure very, very carefully is where do they sell? If they are actually KOLs, just purely through WeChat circle on your own, you do not have legitimate content. You're just very good at selling. We do not sell you either, because that means you can just have your friends and family who knows a lot of people selling this on their friend circle, and you're out of control. The way they sell you, you do not know. The price they sell you do not know. But if this KOL actually are very good at generating content that's very good to go through people's heart, explaining your brand, and they sell very well, we collaborate, because you have 2 benefits at one shot. They are building brand awareness. They're talking about why are you functionally, emotionally different. At the same time, they're selling you. And you do want to making sure you are brands very actively reaching out to them. The second question you asked is how to reach them. It's not easy. Even for a company like Shopal, we have to try. So we tried thousands of them. We see which one, because they all claim they generate a lot of readership. They all claim they can sell. But only when you reach out to them, you realize some of them can sell 50 RMB product. They cannot sell 2,000. Some of them can sell a 2,000. They cannot sell a mouthwash out of, if it's skincare-based KOL. So this, you have to really work through. Again, the partner should really have good experience working with them and had real data and benefits to understand who they are. I would always not qualify that as a number, honestly, because if you really say, I want to start, the first stage would be work with a partner to figure out your first step. If you are thinking about launching directly to TMAll, and then that's a little bit heavier, your distributor have to buy your product, and you have to prepare to co-invest with distributor to traffic. So all of this one sometimes is not monetary. Very hard to really give a figure. But I do feel that probably consider this if your investor and your distributor and yourself are co-investing to begin an operation. The both sides add up together. Sometimes distributor spends more at the beginning. Sometimes the brand spends more at the beginning. And maybe with the 1 million RMB, you can get this market started going. But then again, I think the hardest part is who is doing it, or which strategy you're following. If you have somebody say, you first come in doing a 2 million RMB campaign without any online presence and offline presence, something's fishy, right? Where does it land? I think every brand must realize, particularly small brands, being small, one thing is very careful and very important is that every dollar you spend today must have value 3 months down the road. You cannot, like a big brand, I spend money today means nothing 3 months down the road, let's see, because you don't have that much resource to waste. So the question is more about who's the partner doing what strategy with you. I think that makes a huge difference. For example, for Natura Bissé, even if it's, you know, in Spain, it's a very well-known brand, but in China, it's relatively speaking almost nobody knows it except the spa B2B side, but B2C side, the consumer does not know. Then we never really, Shopal does not come with Natura Bissé to talk about money. We said, okay, what product? We have to buy product at what price because our investment in what area. So we are investing in KOL, we're investing in traffic, we're investing in search keywords, we're investing in products. So all of these. But that is us, right? If you work with TP, it's a different model because they earn commission, they will have to have you reinvest a lot more. And buying traffic when you are zero, no C2C base, no KOL base, it will be extremely, extremely expensive, of course. And they also require you to discount. So you ended up with very few profit and loss. So that is so it's very hard for me to pinpoint. But then I think with 1 million RMB on both sides added together, this can start to go. But then ongoing basis is not stopping. It's not 1 million RMB a year. It goes with your ambition, how fast is you're moving. Okay. I'm sorry. If I can answer how much money would require to kick off a brand in China, I would not be telling you the truth because nobody really knows. And 3 months from now, it will be a very different game also. Now I'm looking at this year, Alibaba and JD's #1 war zone is no longer online. They're going offline. Their biggest investment, 80% of that, is going to offline land grabbing. So, you know, the war zone is shifting, but the way they go offline is not what people think, just opening shopping malls like they are. No, they're actually renovating, you know, food stands, convenience stores. They're opening their own shopping malls. So that space going, you do not know Double 11. What's the game this year? So you do not know the investment. I think with a good partner, you should consider that within a year. Now the question is for you, yourself, you have to figure out, because for example, the different stages. When we work with a brand, if you are zero brand awareness, the first thing we do is cultivate C2C seller base and cultivate the KOL group. That does not cost a lot of money, but you have to do a lot of labor work. You have to sell, you have to convince them to carry you and why. And then once you reach a certain stage, you go to the TMAll, JD, all of these ones where you have to do investment. So break even at a small scale, it's not hard. The question is your ambition. If your ambition is, for example, I want to be 200 million brand without discounter, be a climber, then you might have to reinvest every cent you made when you're small. So that is a different game. Weibo, WeChat, what we call 双微, 双微, double V, must do, but they are landed. For example, the WeChat KOL landed on JD or landed on their own WeChat store. The Weibo lands on C2C Alibaba Taobao seller site. So they all land on the commercial side somewhere. But today you have new media like Douyin, which is short video, just flashing tons of short video. You have Douyin, you have also many broadcasting platforms within Alibaba and JD. They built a WeChat Weibo within their e-commerce platform, so they completely transform into social media, social platform as combined with e-commerce, so it's social commerce. So I think biggest one is WeChat Weibo, but not your own WeChat store, your own Weibo, because you are so powerless as a new brand. You power compete to a one well-established Weibo WeChat KOL that's right for your brand is a lot weaker. It will take forever for you to grow that base and cost you a lot of money. Coalition, I think one of the things, relinquish some of the controls, very critical in this market. You have to think your brand as coalition, people fighting together with you, rather than yourself. I've built my own WeChat, I'll build my own Instagram. That does not work in this market. But however, on Alibaba and JD, you have to own your own content very well within the e-commerce site. I will give you a perspective for every brand we run. A TMAll flagship store, every month you probably have to generate 200 visuals. Why? What they call 1,000 people, 1,000 faces. Every person you want to convert is different. You have to give them different visuals for the same SKU or same content appearance. And without a good content partner, what do? They discount you. The good content partner, they have to figure out conversion, how to sell. So it's a very different game. If you look outside, the two companies seems like the model looks exactly the same, but you look inside, the core is very different. So that's why I said, you want to win content side, you have to win even on Ali, JD. They are the #1 content generator on e-commerce in China today anyway. Why? Because they penetrate the entire China on people to buy, and they compete on content today also. Now, however, on social media, WeChat, Weibo, and the new one coming out with video streaming, do not forget about them either. Live streaming, interestingly, is going down. So this market, you see something coming up and going down very fast. Live streaming is not as hot as last year. But however, I think what we call educational material is very important. Using video to truly explain, particularly for cosmetics. Cosmetics, a lot of people just talk about price, but in reality, cosmetics is one of the most sensorial driven. What is sensorial driven? The smell, the method of application, the pre-touch, the post-application feel. All of these ones are sensorial, and it's very hard to explain those to consumer via static 2D visual. With video, it's a little bit better. I think one of the things I do want to call out, I shared with Natura Bissé the other day because they're so into new technology. And then, because Shopal, we are into new retailing and we're studying new technology. We know Ali next year is going to introduce black magic box, which you scan a QR code, the magic box is black, you get into a different app. The visual reality, everything, it sounds fancy, but in reality, there are so many technology next year going to be introduced, and that's a new area every brand needs to learn, want to win in e-commerce. Take a steady step, making sure your partner is not looking at price, product only. They are looking at content. They're looking at not only content today, they're looking at where is the content going 1 year from now. Because all of this one, it will take you time to produce. For example, we pushed Natura Bissé to have visuals. Took them 3 months to get ready for China e-commerce type of visual. And now we're pushing them for video. They're shooting videos for editorial, for educating consumers. And then very soon, we'll have to figure out what is the next necessary consumer experience online. I think one of the interesting elements is that several years ago, people always say, it's impossible to do branding online. And today, the conversation is shifting. It's impossible to do branding offline because it's very hard for you to get the right information in. You go into China e-commerce, every SKU, you scroll 10 pages, you still have information going on and on and on. People are actually learning about the brand online. And then it's the brand's job to enrich the experience as much as you can. For the 90s generation, and the generation that's coming, born post to year 2000, in prepared markets, I've always feel you do not have to adopt Asian image, because by reality you're selling via foreign trade zone, free trade zone, right? So they know you are a foreign brand. So it's very important you have very legitimate visual that works very well with your own country, and your partner usually have to translate the copies, the descriptions of the product, the brand positioning, logos and slogan. But it does not mean you have to really, at least for the first 2 years, I might strongly suggest when you first enter China, do not adapt locally as many people might request you do. But that being said, you do not have enough visual for this market for sure. Because honestly, I have to be very blunt. If you focus on offline, you have 2 campaigns a year. Each campaign you have 20 visual maximum. I just mentioned, for a brand to do properly climber-based e-commerce in China, not discount-based, you need at least 100 visuals or 200 visuals a month. You're not going to have enough. So the key thing is not you adapt for the local market, is you have to making sure you generate the right one so you can indicate what's the additional 80 every month have to look like. So, but I think the toughest question is control and trust. When you don't trust your partner, or they're focused only on discount and product, loading inventory, then of course you cannot trust their visual. You have to review. But when you have a really good partner, then you trust, then you figure out a comfort zone because it's too much. We realize for several foreign brands, even for them to review the content, it's a workload never imagined, and it's just like reviewing is hard enough. For them to generate a new one, it's going to be insane. Be ready for that if you're a good partner. Yeah, I don't think there is an image. Honestly, by working with Natura Bissé, I have to really shuffle my team quite a bit. What does that mean? Because my team is very used to working with the Caudalie, right, and also Chantecaille, which is New York French elite or the Parisian elite. But then when we talk about Natura Bissé, we come in like, boss, we have a problem. I said, what's the problem? This is not luxury brand. I said, what do you mean? Look at their Instagram. One of the habits my team have, they would definitely take a look of all the Instagram images of this brand and study as hard as possible. But these images, they're not luxury. I said, why it's not luxury? Because I studied and worked many years overseas. I understand there are different sides of luxury, right? There are the super cool elitism luxury. There's a super high fashion haute couture, but there is the understated, staying true type of luxury also. But for Chinese consumer, not there yet. So they are very attuned to this is luxury, you know, look at this image, all of this was luxury. But this does not look luxury in our view. But then I think it's very important. Then we have to educate them. This is Parisian, French luxury. This is the Barcelona luxury. And Barcelona and Madrid is different too, you know what I mean, right? I said it's sunny, it's welcoming, it's not cold, and it's very warm, and it's engaging. That kind of luxury, not I'm super cool kind of luxury. It's not where to begin with. But it's something I even have to educate my team. Okay. And that's something they have to really work on. 6 months from now or 3 years from now? 3 years from now, I do not know. I can tell 3 years from now, it will be no difference between online and offline. It will be either any e-commerce product will be, even for skincare, delivered within 2 hours anywhere in China. So that's where this market is going. And AI visual, we do not know whether artificial intelligence or virtual reality will come. But actually, in reality, is the delivery speed, the convenience, the online, offline are the same inventory management will come. That's for sure unstoppable. I've recently written an article that was all over the place about this, and then Ali come on and said, yeah, we're going to make this year. In certain category, in Alibaba and JD, already achieving 2-hour delivery anywhere in China. So this is not future. Future's here, just not in cosmetic yet because the brands are not ready. But overall, 6 months from now, I think the year 2018, the last time I saw traffic so unstable, fragmented into different parts, rather than consolidated by the platform giving to certain brands, it was the year 2010, when the offline business was dispersing traffic into different type of brands, domestic and international, global versus newcomer. So this is the market where, for the next 2 years, small brands still have opportunity, because in the year 2000, Nike, Adidas, and new brands, right? They establish who they are. And 2010, you have offline shuffling, and you have a new brands emerging. Now today on e-commerce, the smaller brands consumer are looking for. So you naturally have inclination, they're looking for second generation. But 2 years from now, it will be too many brands again. So it will be very hard. If you're interested in this market, I do recommend come early. The learning curve alone will cost you arm and leg 2 years later. So that's my recommendation. And honestly, I cannot tell. Even though I've been doing retail for almost 15 years now, I just cannot tell where this market is going 3 years from now. If somebody can tell you, I would take that with a grain of salt. But this year, I think the #1 rule for competition is content conversion and retention. Really figure out the left brain and right brain, because you cannot rely on discount. You cannot rely on the platform promise you traffic, so you'll spend a lot of money to buy. Last year, many brands bought expensive traffic from the platform, 0 conversion. They're not high quality content anymore. And all the algorithm nowadays is automated, so nobody in the platform can actually dominate that much of your ranking. So the key thing is doing real retail this year, not just dumping inventory online. So that, I know for sure, will be the competition point for the next 2 to 3 years, regardless how market change.